Hi, and welcome to View's partner interview series. My name is Adam, and I'm a Senior Insights and Measurement Manager at View. We recently partnered with Yahoo to release a white paper looking at programmatic digital out of home as a channel and how it delivers incremental value both offline and online. Within the report, we focused on a few campaigns we worked on together with Yahoo, and I'm happy to be joined today by Alice Beecroft, Senior Director for Global DSP Strategy and Partnerships based in the UK, as well as Andrew, who's Director of Platforms over at Yahoo Australia and Southeast Asia, based in Australia. So let's jump straight into it. Hi Alice, hi Andrew, how are you doing?
Not so
Good,
bad.
mate.
Lovely to be here.
Great. Good to have you both with us. So let's jump straight in. For many, out of home is typically still considered to be an upper funnel play. Do you feel that the addition of programmatic into out of home is enabling it to drive more lower funnel activity? And if so, how and why? Alice, we'll come to you first on this one.
I definitely agree with you. Lower funnel has certainly become enabled by programmatic digital out of home, but I personally wouldn't see it as it being the main place in the media mix for all types of lower funnel. So it definitely does depend what it is that you're trying to do with regards to that sort of that lower funnel push. What I would say though is it is a medium that has a higher trust point with consumers compared to others such as social. So it does bring into the media mix something with regards to the strategy to allow sort of the measurement of our ROI through driving users to a brand's website or increasing store traffic. And we really are starting to see digital out of home starting to shift that direction increasingly. Bringing out of home into a multi-channel or omni-channel campaign has also evolved hugely, as now there's the ability to bridge consumers' real world and digital experiences. And thinking about digital out of home within that sort of combined marketing strategy, it really can be considered as the perfect catalyst to actually nudge consumers further down the funnel. And with that ability to continue messaging that has potentially started out on a billboard or a bus shelter screen or even in a more sort of contextual environment such as a gym onto a consumer's own device where there is actually that touch point for them to engage more fully with the brand and thus arguably sort of drive that lower funnel strategy. And that's incredibly powerful. So I mean, to come back to whether or not it should only be considered as an upper funnel play, if you're only looking at digital out of home in the old style legacy way of running for X number of days or X number of weeks, etc., and you're buying it in a very siloed manner, then yes, it probably is still just sort of sitting within that upper funnel. But where you're able to connect it in to other types of channels, and you're actually doing it more as a multi-channel branding strategy, then yeah, we are starting to see it being used to drive lower funnel activity as well.
Andrew, have you got anything you want to add here?
Yeah, so as Alice was saying, right? So we can look at it across the funnel. It doesn't necessarily get set in the silos in different ways, but the way that we typically kind of look at it from our approaches here in Australia is that if we look at the direct IO versus programmatic approaches, what we're really trying to talk to is the audience in general. So if we speak about direct, right, direct is typically locked in for lengthy periods of time, 2 to 4 weeks, as an example, solace periods. If we take a bus shelter as an example, right, you may have one ad out of 6 on a rotation within that as well. And because you're buying that over that extended period of time, it comes with the fact that you're going to drive a significant volume of reach and frequency, which kind of feeds that upper funnel play that we're talking about. But when we start to think about the audience itself, you're also going to get a whole bunch of positive wastage, which comes out of that as well, because you're not just talking to that audience that the brief was based on. You're actually just talking to anyone that's actually there in market at that time. And so the way that we typically try to look at it is that we want to make sure that they're playing both in harmony and they're both speaking to the full funnel. And if we're speaking around, the programmatic version of it, it lends really well to what direct does because it drives reach and frequency deeper within the audience that they're going after. And they can have brand-based messaging or they can have price point retail messaging as well. So it's always going to get you there. It just depends on how we kind of buy and what the collaboration is with the other different forms of out of home that they're buying at the same time as well.
So then, as a follow-up to the previous question, and Andrew will stay with you for this one, are you increasingly seeing clients planning to use programmatic digital out of home to drive incremental value in other ways, both online and offline?
It's interesting because with the adoption of programmatic out of home, we're obviously having different types of clients that are coming into it. So you may have between 10 to 20% of brand new advertisers that are coming into the channel for the first time because they see that incrementality in the way that it can be bought. In terms of capability and stuff like that, the fact that you get real-time information, you get real-time data showing what's being delivered hourly, etc. The fact that you can measure this directly to footfall, you can see what it looks like in terms of uplift back to the website as well as the ability to lead with out of home and then try and re-engage those audiences across the funnel in different channels as well. The incremental value comes in trackability, right? But it also comes in the agility and the flexibility of different things that you can actually do throughout the funnel and across your campaign period.
I'm particularly interested to know, Alice, is this something that you've seen, especially within the UK market, for example?
Definitely. I mean, we're seeing all of the same things that Andrew mentioned, that he's seeing in sort of Australia and Southeast Asia. I think one of the things that the pandemic and the lack of people sort of being outside actually brought to the industry, it actually gave an opportunity, definitely in the UK, for the media owners to actually digitize their assets. And so we actually saw a huge increase in the number of locations, the number of media owners that actually were able to move not only their placements from static across into the digital environment, but also then to be able to bring those into the programmatic ecosystem. And with that brings scale. And so where you have scale, suddenly you do start to see more of this sort of combined planning, this combined activation. And through the sort of connectivity between digital out of home into the digital ecosystem, suddenly you are, as Andrew quite rightly said, you're able to measure that incremental value. You're really able to actually fundamentally prove the fact that out of home is not only being effective, but it's driving incremental effectiveness, because at the end of the day, those digital touch points can now be properly measured and can be optimized towards in real time. So it's not just understanding the impact of the activity 4 weeks, 5 weeks after you've completed it, but actually being able to make those changes in real time and not necessarily move budget out of home, but modify which media owners you're running across the localities, etc., in order to sort of improve that sort of incremental lift, both for online impact, but also for offline. So yeah, no, we're definitely seeing the same thing.
I think to your point on scale, and this is something we explore a little bit in the white paper, that programmatic digital out of home is a good example of a broadcast media channel that can be successfully combined with one-to-one media channels to drive campaign effectiveness. We know the principle is called priming, and it describes how broadcast media channel plays an important role in preparing consumers for conversion once they're re-exposed to the brand via another channel. I mean, mobile is a good example of that. What impact do you think that idea is having on the way that campaigns are planned? And Andrew, will come to you first on this one.
Yeah, sure. So I mean, the topic of kind of priming, right, can be kind of be used for many broad reach or mass reach kinds of mechanisms within campaigns. And as you were saying, it's well known for out of home. The way that we typically use it is that we will plan a full omni-channel architecture for a client on how, based on the brief, based on the audience, data response, all of these different things, how we best believe that that can be done. And a lot of the time, people might not have budgets for the significant TV campaigns, and they know that they can get the significant reach of the same level from out of home. And so we'll lead with that in that priming mechanism, like you said. And from a planning point of view, through the technology, we can capture those consumers via, capturing mobile device IDs that were exposed within the vicinity of those campaigns, and then using out of home as that key lead. We capture that, we use it as a seed, and then we can take that data and then re-engage those consumers that were exposed throughout the campaign. And so the idea with how we plan now is with the idea that we can control pretty much every way that an exposure might happen throughout that period, and we can try and drive consumers through that consumer journey as best we possibly can towards whatever that end goal might be, whether it be in store, online, whether it might just be driving ad recall consideration and things like that as well. So there's quite a lot that we can do from a planning point of view, which is really nice.
Alice, are you approaching this with the same thought process in the UK?
Definitely. And I think priming's always been, as Andrew quite rightly said, has always been the case when it comes to using these sort of broad reach mediums and combining it. I think the difference that we're now starting to see in the UK is that the knowledge of digital out of home is starting to be brought in to the digital teams, and to some extent there is some of that knowledge, that digital knowledge, also sort of going back the other way into the digital out of home teams. There are some clients whereby it's all combined, in which case you have that perfect moment where you actually be talking and sort of planning alongside them, both digital out of home and the other channels at the same time. But we're definitely not there where the planning and activation teams within a lot of the agencies are like fully combined when it comes to out of home. But we are starting to see that shift. And with that shift, we are now also starting to see the understanding as to how digital out of home can actually be primed alongside the other channels. And when I'm talking about alongside, I actually mean it's fully immersed within the other channels, and it is actually properly a multi-channel campaign rather than it just being in silo activated. It just so happens it goes live at the same time. So we're definitely seeing it. I would certainly like to see more. And arguably that's where sort of Yahoo comes through, in the fact that we do understand both mediums. We do have that knowledge. We have the digital understanding, but we also have the out of home understanding. So we are doing an awful lot of sort of knowledge and education sharing with our clients, and they want to hear it. They are interested in it, and we are seeing that with the activations that are now starting to come through, because when it does happen, it shows great results. I mean, one of the case studies that is in the report that you mentioned earlier was for Danone Aptamil. In that case, we helped the client to plan digital out of home alongside display, native, and video right from the get-go. It wasn't added in as an extra. It wasn't a case whereby there happened to be out of home activity running at the same time. It was all planned in a synchronous way. And we wanted to use that as a proof point that digital out of home does actually drive that incremental value, and it was proven. It was shown that 36.8% increase in sales compared to when digital out of home was actually just run in silo. So I think that there are a lot of proof points that are out there. We're definitely seeing it, starting to increase in the UK, but there is that element of needing to have those planning and activation teams over in the agencies and within the clients to become a little bit more aligned and have the knowledge of each other's mediums.
I think you've perfectly lined up my follow-on question then, in the sense that adopting a multi-channel approach to campaign planning and buying has become standard practice for many advertisers, and programmatic is enabling digital out of home to be planned, activated, and optimized alongside other channels. I'm interested to know, are you seeing trends in which digital channels work best with programmatic digital out of home in particular? And Alice, I think it's a good idea for you to expand on your previous point.
I think it depends what the brand's wanting to achieve. I don't think there's a one size fits all, but I do feel that digital out of home has its place to play pretty much with any of the other digital channels that are there. I mean, I can certainly say that I wouldn't expect digital out of home to be used as like that last touch point, the last thing that we're wanting consumers to see. But it also shouldn't necessarily just be used as the first either. We are seeing some great activities in the UK where geo at the postcode level is kind of like being used as that sort of central cog in order to sort of drive combined activities across digital out of home and CTV together, both of which are traditionally seen as sort of, broad reach mediums. And the main reason for that is so that you're actually capturing users, whether they're inside the home or outside of the home at the same time. Equally, though, using location and context as people are out and about. And for the most part, when people are out and about, they also happen to be on their mobile phones. So being able to actually sort of capture them with that broad reach and at the same time give them that sort of instant gratification of being able to engage through sort of refinding them on their mobile phone is also being used. But sort of thinking about it from a creative aspect, out of home can also be used as a way to launch a much more immersive, a much more sort of brand engaging experience. In the UK last year, we did a phenomenal activation with a very well-known consumer finance brand, which actually used digital out of home combined with a QR code to launch a augmented reality experience around all the major cities in the UK, where people could win prizes in a treasure hunt. But it wasn't just done, did digital out of home by itself. We also ran alongside that sort of mobile and other digital campaigns, and it was the combination of that exposure that saw fantastic results. So in that case, it wasn't a case of should digital out of home be the first or the last. It was more about amplifying the experience that consumers were getting, and we're actually able to prove that it was only when we did that sort of combined way of working that we supercharge the brand equity, which we were measuring. So look, I don't think there's a one size fits all. I think what does need to be considered is the part that digital out of home can play and what it is that you're actually trying to achieve, because arguably digital out of home can be that mechanism to help sort of amplify what it is that you're wanting to achieve and drive that incremental uplift.
Andrew, are you seeing any particular trends with regards to which digital channels are working best in Australia and Southeast Asia?
So I'd probably point to two. So as Alice was just saying, right, with the idea of what are we trying to achieve with the brand message or the campaign, there's contextual environments, right, like train centers and stuff like that, where during peak hour you have full attention of every single person that is sitting there on that actual station waiting for their train. And there's really beautiful executions that can be done, 15 to 30-second long videos, full audio, all of that kind of stuff. And if we think about how TV typically plays peak hour, 6 to 9 p.m. here in Australia, right? you've got peak hour from 4 to 6 p.m. in the afternoon if you're in that location at that time. And it's an amazing place to kind of start the consumer journey there, start that really, really great experience there. And so I think if you're doing really rich brand messaging in terms of video, and you start that earlier on in the day, you have the ability to pair it really nicely with CTV. And then I'd also say that with audio is another one of these similar to out of home, right? Where a lot of the time it's not like mobile where it's directly in your face or it's on your laptop or something like that, and you have to directly engage or interrupt what they're doing. A lot of the time, audio and out of home can be subtly pushed into the consumer journey, via the physical direction that they're going, but also what they're listening to at the time. And if you've got messaging that's happening in those out of home environments, and then you're supplementing them with retail messaging into some of the audio channels like Spotify, podcasting, and things like that, you've got a really nice way of trying to engage the consumer in different formats and tie it all together, which is really awesome.
So to finally round everything off, I think we can agree the world is dominated by short form communication and attention deficit. So success often depends on the ability to stand out. With that in mind, what's the best way, do you think, for advertisers to maximize their campaign impact using programmatic digital out of home? And Andrew, let's hear from you first on that one.
So what I'd say that the best thing about what we do in programmatic out of home, or just out of home in general, is the ability to buy contextual with creative messages that match the environment. And a lot of the time, brands match their brand architecture to deliver in those types of environments as well. And so we have insurance brands here in Australia that lead with health-based messaging, and through programmatic, they'll choose the peak hour times within gym formats, right? And the delivery of that, as well as in office environments and stuff like that, is perfectly matched. And so if you want high intention, you need high dwell time a lot of the time. You need really strong creative as well. And if you can deliver it at those times where they will have the ability to absorb it because they're there for a considerable amount of time, it's a really beautiful use case. So there's lots of different pieces that kind of feed through like that. And we're also starting to see the adoption of dynamic creative within out of home a little bit more as well, making sure that you have the right message based on the audience that will be there at that time also. So all of these different stars are starting to align, which is really awesome.
Alice, do you want to weigh in here on maximizing campaign impact?
Everything that Andrew said. So definitely, I mean, the dwell time aspect, I mean, but when it comes to, and then that's also where being able to sort of combine those locations which have a high dwell time, potentially with another channel such as mobile, because traditionally people are, when they're sort of standing around waiting for something, they're quite frequently on their mobile device at the same time. I mean, there has been some amazing executions, amazing sort of 3D spectacular executions that have been seen around the world. But it's not necessarily just about those sort of spectacular, huge, massive digital out of home screens. It's also just about being able to harness the context of the location, what it is that the user is most likely going to be doing whilst they're there. I mean, we're starting to see quite a surge around petrol filling stations, for example. The fact that people are physically, filling up their car, and they are going to be there for sort of 1.5 minutes, 2 minutes, etc. And that is a prime opportunity to be able to provide them with a creative and some messaging that is relevant to what it is that they're currently doing. So yeah, take advantage of the dwell time, really understand the location, the locality, and creativity. And when those three come together, I think you don't need to be as concerned about whether or not a user is going to be attentive, because they will be attentive. But you need to bring those three things together.
So it looks like we're at the end of today's interview. It was great to catch up with you both, and thanks so much for your time, Alice and Andrew. It's really appreciated. We will be sharing this recording on the View blog and social channels, so please comment and ask any questions or give recommendations on the types of topics you'd like to have us cover in our next interview.